Previously on Gaming Legends, Detective Chase McCain was declared legally blind, relying on the Wii U gamepad to guide him around the entire city as he sought to arrest a wanted criminal. Unfortunately, the general public were not thrilled that the Lego City Police Department allowed a blind man to tackle a case unassisted when he couldn't even DJ properly. Under tremendous public pressure, Mayor Gleason has now passed legislation permitting citizens' arrest. Can you beat Lego City Undercover with only civilians? We'll be playing the PS4 Remastered version of the game on PlayStation 5, both for co-op multiplayer and faster loading times. For the purposes of this run, all progress must be made using only character disguises found within the civilian category. On screen now is a list of every single legal character in alphabetical order. If they're not on this list, we're not allowed to do anything productive with them. Additionally, using the disguise wheel or quick swap buttons to manually change disguise slots is banned. And finally, all in-game cheat codes are also banned. Yes, even this one. Without further ado, let the run begin. We start with only 3 characters available: Chase McCain, and Grace Makepeace, all wearing their civilian plainclothes. If you're unfamiliar with Lego City Undercover, civilians have no unique abilities, making them the most objectively useless slot on the disguise wheel. In a casual playthrough, you have no reason to choose them over literally anything else. This becomes a problem almost immediately in the police HQ. In order to access the requisition desk and receive the communicator from Ellie, we need to open this gate with a keypad. The action point in front of this keypad has a police shield icon, meaning only police characters can use it. The civilian versions of Chase McCain and Grace Makepeace don't count. It has to be a uniformed officer. Or does it? Civilians may be useless, but some are more useless than others. There are certain specific civilians, found within the Special 1, Special 2, and Service subcategories, that do in fact have special abilities. For example, the mechanic, who is unlocked after building the disguise booth in Auburn, can operate fuse boxes despite not being a construction character. If we can somehow unlock one of these special characters early, we might just be able to get this run off the ground. Our first target is the Explorer, whose token is located on Lady Liberty Island. You normally can't access this island until the post-game, but Normalcy and I aren't exactly on speaking terms. Head to these rocks on the Auburn shoreline with 2 players and have them warp to each other until one player warps directly into the water. Wait for the game to tell you to hold the action button, then do so. If you do it right, Chase will respawn already in the water. By doing this, we've disabled the shark that normally kills you if you stray too far from the coastline. Since the shark doesn't appear, we're free to swim all the way to Lady Liberty Island. Once we get there, we can assemble all the binoculars and collect the Explorer token. Build the nearest disguise booth, spend 10,000 studs to buy him, and equip him to the civilian slot. Instead of swimming all the way back to the mainland, you can either quit to the title screen or leave a second player behind and warp to them. The Explorer isn't a complete substitute for a policeman, but he does possess one police ability: Detective Scan. Take the Explorer to the TV station in Cherry Tree Hills, activate Detective Scan, and follow the footprints to unearth our second character, the inimitable Herlock Sholmes. The detective is one of the few characters that can occupy multiple disguise slots. He's legally a policeman, but can still be assigned to the civilian slot, and still has all his usual police powers when doing so. This includes the ability to open the gate leading to the requisition desk, and the realization that everything you just did was a complete waste of time. The cutscene that gives us the communicator will only trigger if Frank Honey has complimented us on our uniform, which he won't do unless we're wearing it. And we don't have access to the disguise booth in the police station yet, so we can't swap our police character. That means we're forced to press the quick swap button once to play as Chase McCain Police for at least 1 frame of gameplay and thus fail the run. At least we can mitigate the damage done by quick swapping with player 2 and then immediately dropping them out. Once we wake up Chief Dumby and return to the overworld, we can run to the nearest disguise booth and equip Detective to both the civilian and police slots on both players. There are certain points in the story that cause the game to select the police slot automatically, for example when you enter the rooftops level. Since the detective is technically still a civilian, assigning him to that slot makes this a non-issue. If we ever do need to swap back to the civilian slot, we can just head to the lineup room and select the custom civilian. And in most cases where specific disguise slots are auto-equipped, the game will leave you alone if the target slot and the current slot have the same character. That said, don't be so hasty progressing through the story. We need to go on a shopping trip for a few more disguises first. The disguises in question are on the eastern side of the map, the bridges to which are cordoned off until Chapter 5. But I didn't get this far by being a law-abiding citizen, and I'll be damned if I start now. If Player 1 has their back against a wall and jumps as Player 2 warps to them, Player 2 will spawn inside the wall. By clipping through this pillar on the Heritage Bridge, they'll land on the train tracks past the cordon, allowing them safe passage. Once on the Eastern Island, beeline for the disguise booth in Fresco, just south of Papalato's ice cream parlor. Building this booth unlocks the gangster disguise, which is legally both a civilian and a robber. But honestly, that part could have been done at any time. The real prize lies on Apollo Island, and we need it right now. You could reach Apollo Island by driving a hanker into the ocean to teleport to the stratosphere, but this comes with the risk of overshooting and or crashing the game. Instead, we can do the no shark glitch from the port in King's Court and swim all the way over. Once you arrive, head to this door, clip Player 2 through the wall, and build the cupboard to unlock Chase McCain Astronaut early. Unfortunately, this disguise won't autosave immediately, but rather when we complete the next major story mission. Luckily, we're still at the beginning of Chapter 2. Use the no shark glitch to swim back to the mainland, walk along the train tracks on Heritage Bridge, and use multiplayer to clip through the barricade.
Are you crazy?
Good evening.
Get out of here, it's not safe.
Once you unlock the grapple gun, the astronaut slot will be permanently unlocked. We won't explicitly need this slot until much later in the game, but trust me, it's better that we unlock it now. And now that we have the grapple gun, we can access the first special assignment, Some Assaults. Conveniently, LEGO City Undercover broke series tradition by allowing the use of any unlocked character on the first playthrough of each level. That means the detective can easily arrest Snake Squealer and company, finishing Chapter 2. After getting the civilian version of the detective back on Player 1, have Player 2 equip the gangster to their civilian slot. Even as a civilian, the gangster can still pry open doors with the crowbar and crack safes with the stethoscope. And since players can warp to each other, we can share the workload perfectly. Once you finish the prison level, you'll also want Gangster assigned to both players' robber slots, just in case. Minor Altercation is where we unlock the Minor disguise, which is sadly unusable. Not only is there no way to auto-equip the Minor slot, but none of the civilian characters have any Minor abilities. That means we can't destroy boulders or handle dynamite, which is a problem when the whole level is built around those abilities. Fortunately, we can use the 2-player warp to clip through the wall above the boulders and walk straight on through to the loading zone. The skydiving section has unfortunately lost its namesake, as we can't build the diving board without blowing up the outhouse with dynamite. Thankfully, another warp clip lets us fall through the entire thing out of bounds, landing safely in the water at the bottom. Using more warp clips and a pre-existing brick supply, we can make it all the way to the end of the level, open the safe, and listen to Clarence Fletcher's final words. With that level done, we can head to Barry Smith's dojo for Kung Fu. The outdoor area theoretically requires a single stick of dynamite to get 2 of the super bricks, but it's entirely possible to get them without it. Remember how the warp clip is performed by having one player's back against a wall? Well, if there's a ledge near that wall, the other player will warp on top of that ledge instead. We can use this to get the detective onto the right wall and up to the torches on the roof. Once you finish the dojo, you'll unlock Advanced Combat, which is absolutely essential to beat the game. The rest of Chapter 4 doesn't have any roadblocks, but the start of Chapter 5 presents an issue. During the cutscene, Ellie gives us the Chase Undercover disguise, automatically assigning it to both players' police slots and auto-equipping it for Player 1. And if Player 2 isn't joined in, their version of Chase Undercover gets auto-equipped too. It is technically possible to prevent this from happening by skipping straight from Chapter 4 to the final level. But there's an item in Chapter 6 that we absolutely need, and the mission to unlock it can only be reached by playing through the chapters in order. So we unfortunately had to accept our new clothes and then immediately change them. Now that we can proceed through Chapters 5 and 6, we can make a delivery to Vinnie Pappalardo and unlock the aforementioned item, the Color Gun. This weapon is assigned to robber characters, including the gangster, and allows them to change the colour of certain objects. We get the chance to try it out in Dirty Work, but there's a few moments where the game intends for us to use a miner. Thankfully, all such obstacles can be bypassed with the use of warp clips. I especially liked this one in the second area, in which I clipped into the wall and grabbed a pole from the other side. After taking the emeralds, the game auto-equips Player 1's robber slot, which I somehow failed to document during my research. He did still have Gangster assigned to it, but to evade the semantic police, I decided to proceed with only Player 2 until I could get Player 1's civilian slot back. That unfortunately included not just the end of the level, but also the chase sequence with the relocator. While Player 2 was easily sailing on through with no issues, Player 1 was getting swarmed by the entire precinct. Since the mission fails if either player's relocator gets destroyed, the time limit was effectively shrunk. It took me 3 tries, but I did eventually reach the drop-off point in time. After some photography lessons, we get a call from Chan Chuang summoning us to Apollo Island. The ferry route from King's Court is still out of commission, but thankfully we can take our own boats there now. Apollo Island is where you unlock the astronaut slot, but guess what we've already done? There is one more thing we need from here though, the classic alien disguise, which is a civilian with astronaut powers. The dev-intended way to unlock them is by building the satellite dish super build, turning it on, and using a teleporter to enter the arena below. But you can only use a teleporter with an astronaut, so we need another way in. After some experimentation, I found a viable warp clip route to go through the doors and reach the classic alien token. Equip them to the astronaut slot as a backup, then use the teleporter at the Space Center to enter Astronauty. Unfortunately, the very first area requires the use of police, robber, and astronaut abilities at the same time. The loading zone for the shuttle bay is in the ceiling, and I wasn't able to find any viable warp clips. This level, and thus the remainder of Chapter 7, are impossible with our rule set. Luckily, nobody cares. Our end goal is to reach the credits, and wouldn't you know it, the credits are in level 15. So all we have to do is get into level 15 and the run is over. By crazy happenstance, the loading zone for level 15 is located just below the Apollo Island map in an area that's normally inaccessible. Speedrunners will usually get here by using the Farmer's Chicken Glide and extending it by rapidly quick-swapping. But that's illegal on 2 counts, so we gotta find a different way in. Before starting, equip Mechanic to Player 1's civilian slot and Gangster to Player 2's. Now head to Apollo Island and have Player 1 warp inside this wall under the launch pad. Stand exactly here at this exact angle. Now have Player 2 fetch a vehicle that's easy to jump onto. I personally recommend the Squatty. Drive it back to Player 1 and have them jump straight up, land on the bonnet without touching the ground, and move to the roof to start car surfing. By doing this, we can displace Player 1's position without changing where Player 2 will warp to. Now drive off the edge of the pier into the water so that the ground where Player 1 was standing unloads. Get Player 2 onto dry land, then warp. If you did it right, it should look like this. Now comes the hard part. Jump with Player 2, then drop out mid-fall and wait a few seconds. Now have Player 2 rejoin and the ground won't have time to load, letting you fall straight through it. If you hold up at exactly this moment, you should land straight in the loading zone, entering the final level, Fly Me to the Moon. Unfortunately, the very first yap is too wide to jump over, requiring the use of the astronaut's jetpack. The jetpack is obtained in Disruptive Behavior all the way in Chapter 13, and even if I did find a way to enter the level early, reaching the jetpack requires the use of dynamite. We'll just have to beat the game without it. When warping to another player, you always arrive slightly behind them, and they then warp slightly behind you. By chaining warps together, you can cross any gap you want. Keep in mind that you can only warp while standing on solid ground, but the kill planes don't extend all the way to the bottom, so you should be safe there. There's also a 1-frame window after respawning where you're legally still grounded, so you can use that as an insurance policy. You can also use warps to skip past this dome as well as the elevator here. Unfortunately, the bridge to the rocket won't activate unless we drive a moon buggy onto this switch. We can get over to the moon buggy just fine, but we can't fully build it without using this astro crate, which only astronauts can do. Fortunately, if you warp from this control room, you can land on the infinitieth floor, which gives you enough altitude to warp chain all the way to the rocket entrance. Once you're in there, you can use Mechanic's Hammer to fix the fuse box, and Gangster's Color Gun to release the Megafig. The Rex Fury boss fight is completely unaffected by character choice. The outdoor phase of the fight, as well as the skydiving section, both auto-equip the astronaut slot for both players. By putting Classic Alien in that slot, we can finish the level with a clear conscience. With Rex Fury falling victim to an alien abduction, the LEGO City Undercover civilian-only run is officially failed, but only twice. If you want to try this run for yourself, I highly recommend it. LEGO games have you constantly swapping characters, and LCU even more so. Limiting yourself to a single character per player makes it an entirely different experience. And if you want to watch my run, the archive footage is in the description. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to casually walk through this tall grass.